Hello and welcome to another episode of the Peninsula Biz Buzz. And my name is Shelley Smith here with my company Premier Rapport and as a liaison with the Chamber via Penn Sherm. Over to you, Bob.
Hey, good morning. This is Bob McKenna from the Virginia Peninsula Chamber, and this is another episode of Peninsula Biz Buzz. Today we're with County Administrator from York County, Neil Morgan. And Neil, I'm looking at your office, and it seems like just yesterday I was sitting over behind you there in the green, it looks like a green chair, and it was a much happier and more positive visit. But we're going to get through this, right? And we're going to get through it because we have very competent administrators and city managers and leaders on the peninsula like you. So let's get right into talking about COVID-19 response from a county administrator's perspective. Over to you, Neil.
Sure. Thank you. And good morning, you all. Yeah, we are going to get through it. We really don't have much choice in the matter. It's been a very interesting time, unlike any in my career in local government. I've told some people, it kind of reminds me if you took 9/11, Hurricane Isabel, and the Great Recession, and you put it all together and stirred it up, that's kind of what this has been like from a local government perspective. A good framework to think about it is we're really addressing it sort of in three categories. What the closures and all have meant for governance, what it does mean and will mean for our finances of county government, and then of course the medical emergency. And they're all interrelated, but just about anything of interest that I would have to share with those watching, you could pretty much put in one of those three categories.
So interesting point. And I read the article in the newspaper this morning in the Daily Press with great interest. But the finance and governance aspect, there's a lot of people out there who just don't quite understand when they say, well, the government will pay for that. Well, where's the government's money come from, Neil?
Well, in the local government, as you're clearly aware, it's constrained. About half of our revenue comes from real estate taxes, about another 10% from car taxes, and then the rest from a bunch of other smaller sources. Those smaller sources, smaller but still significant, like sales tax, meals tax, lodging tax, B-poll tax, those are the ones that tend to be the kind of are dynamic. They can go up suddenly and they can go down suddenly. Those are the ones that, are most at risk in a circumstance like this. And so in our revised budget, we've had to assume that those revenue sources not only are going down in the last quarter of the fiscal year we're in, but will stay down substantially. Probably we forecast that the worst of this will be the first quarter of fiscal 21, which, as you know, York County is somewhat dependent on tourism, and unfortunately the first quarter is the summer. So that's going to be pretty painful for us. We're pretty certain.
So some very difficult budgetary decisions will have to be made, and how will they be made now that we're social distancing and quarantining and working from home?
So that goes to my governance
Right.
category.
That's a softball, right?
Yes. So we have been working through, like all the other local governments around here, how do we convene a meeting of the Board of Supervisors or our elected officials and conduct the necessary business of approving a budget during this odd time. And so we think we've worked through the technical challenges, and we are having a virtual meeting on April 21st. And we'll use the technology similar to what we're using today. And it will include an element of public hearing where members of the viewing public will be able to call in and record a message that will be played in real time as we conduct the budget public hearings. We've practiced it. We're pretty sure it's all going to work. Of course, it's sort of an unprecedented situation, so we have to be prepared for a few things to go wrong. But I was appreciative of the media because they have obviously, as you just alluded to, run significant stories about our revised budget. So everyone who's paying any attention knows what I have recommended. and what the board will be considering here over the next few weeks. But it's significantly cut back as I reported and as you read. All told, we're really talking about a 5% reduction from what things look like only a month ago, which is quite shocking.
Yeah, you think 5%, but then when you actually apply that 5%, it's a lot of money. And
yeah, and I don't want to be overly dramatic about it. I believe, my senior staff believes, that if 5% is what this incident results in at the end of the day, it's not catastrophic. We'll get through it. It means disappointment. It means slowing things down, putting things on hold. But it doesn't mean gutting our ability to come back and start making progress again on the many issues that are important to the community. So hopefully it's sort of like a 1-year pause where we tread water and then we get back to it, and only time will tell if we're right about that.
Okay, I like 1-year pause and treading water. That works better than some of the other scenarios that we've been talking about. Okay, I've got one more quick one, and then we'll go over to Shelley. We talked leading into the program, Neil, about one of the things that you often hear about Hampton Roads is that we need to work together better. We need to work as a region. We've been trying to do that. We've been collaborating on several fronts in the last year or two, I think. What is this going to do to efforts to collaborate more and efforts at regionalism?
It probably is going to have a positive impact. I know you've heard from others. The 6 localities on the peninsula have really been working together well, really since the president's and the governor's states of emergency, when we started closing down all of our facilities. We've tried to coordinate both so that the public gets a common message, and because we have a lot of shared resources. Our medical units pick up people in each other's communities, and our law enforcement back each other up, and we all take people to the same hospitals. And so on that level, it's really been a great story of cooperation. Our military bases have joined in on some of that coordination in the last couple of weeks. And at the Hampton Roads level, we're having 2 or 3 conference calls a week with all of the CAOs of every community from Gloucester to Surrey to Virginia Beach. And we're at least all identifying common issues, sharing policies, talking about challenges. What are you doing about your beach? What are you doing about your playground? What are you doing about first responders and PPE, all of that stuff. So it can only help, and we've certainly got into a rhythm of cooperating and communicating. That being said, issues really are different sometimes for the localities, and we can't do everything the same way. For example, closing the beach at Virginia Beach is a lot different proposition than closing the beach in York County. In York County, it's a beautiful beach, but it's quite narrow, and it's either open or it's closed. If it's open, people are packed in there side by side. There's no such thing as social distancing on our beach, whereas Virginia Beach has a 200-yard wide beach, and they might have other options that we don't have. So we couldn't say, all right, what are you going to do about the beach? And we're going to do the exact same thing. And obviously, we have different employers, some of whom are largely shut down, others from whom are continuing to work. But I would say, Bob, that overall, if the citizens could see the sausage making of local regional cooperation during this event, they would be pleased with what they saw. I certainly have been.
Outstanding. And I think you made a good point there by saying that, collaboration is important, but it's important to also determine when it makes sense and when you have to go your separate ways. So that was a good point. So Shelley, over to you.
So I appreciate your optimism and the way that you frame the conversation today. I think it's really good to hear the different perspectives that each city and county have. So appreciate that. Is there anything as you go into the budget call next week that you discussed, anything around governance, the health side, the finance side that you could clear up ahead of time to maybe curtail some of the phone calls that you might get or some of the questions, just anything that you've not mentioned that we really need to think through as you guys begin to make some tough decisions?
Well, this might not be exactly what you were looking for as an answer, but, and this is obviously something there's dialogue at all levels in the country on, and that is thinking through what reopening looks like.
Mm-hmm.
All the things in my budget make certain assumptions about gradual improvement later in the next fiscal year, and that's based on the premise that we don't botch, getting back to normal and don't have the second big wave and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that all of the local governments and all of the major employers around here are all kind of asking that same set of questions. What does reopening look like? What does it
Mm-hmm.
look like for facilities? What does it look like for people? What does it look like for programs?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have the answer to those questions. I think they're the right questions to be asking. And I hope that over the next 2 or 3 weeks, by the end of April, we'll have a plan with a sort of a common vocabulary of what reopening looks like for York County. And hopefully that'll carry into the region. And by that, what I mean is every department or operation in local government has their own set of services and procedures, and a county administrator or somebody like me can't really get down to that granular. All right, this is what you're going to do on day 1 when we open, and this is what you're going to do on day 10. But what we can do is come up with a common vocabulary across the organization. So my ideal place to be would be that we have maybe condition A, B, C, or something like that. And when the governor says, circumstances have changed, this or that rule has been relaxed, we can very quickly say, implement opening condition A, and all the different departments will know what that means for them.
Mm-hmm.
When the library reopens, does that mean everybody can just come in all at once? Probably not. When you can go to the Commissioner of Revenue's office in person, does that mean you have to make an appointment? Do you meet somebody outside? Do we limit the number of people that come in at any one time? Do people that have been tested positive and recovered, do they get put in a different position in terms of coming back to work? Or people that have an antibody test and we know they have some degree of protection? All of those things are interrelated. And I think getting that right for the private sector and the public sector, for the county and for all the neighboring localities, in a lot of ways is going to improve the odds that we come out of this strongly, and that maybe what we have is a sharp but relatively short economic hit, as opposed to lingering uncertainty, which is
Mm-hmm.
probably the worst case scenario.
Or spin back. I love how you frame that. I mean, that conversation, I've been calling it reentry, that I have with clients on the day-to-day is definitely, we have time to prepare for what does that look like. And you're right, leaning into different scenarios in order to best prepare us and to communicate to employees and to clients and visitors and vendors and so forth, I think is absolutely clear and essential. So we kind of think through all these things so we don't have so many blind spots when they pop up. So is there any final thoughts or something that we did not ask you before we put a wrap on today's podcast?
And maybe just one final comment. I remember after Hurricane Isabel, how much of a positive community spirit there was, and everybody was helping each other, and everybody was kind of letting the little stuff go and working on things that really mattered. And despite all the stresses and challenges of the current time, I am getting somewhat of that vibe again. And I wish there was some way we could bottle that and keep some of that positivity, for all the normal challenges that we'll face in the future.
Now, that's definitely a good point. And talk about what are we going to bring forward, the lessons learned. because we should always bring forward something that was good, and that energy is definitely a good thing, the community spirit, the regionalism spirit. So thank you again. Bob, back over to you for final thoughts, questions, and wrap up.
I've got nothing more to say. Neil, you were fantastic, and just listening to you, I mean, I understand, because I've been reading a lot about it. I understand how many moving parts there are to reopening, and how critical it is to get it right. But you verbalized it very well. So I hope that people are watching this and understanding, because I think it's very easy to be a critic, but it's very difficult to be a decision maker and a leader in a situation like this. So you kind of laid it out very well. And I'd like to offer you, the Chamber's assistance, anything I can do for you during this process. I'd be very happy to do, even if it's just helping communicate, helping get the word out. But it gives me great hope to have leaders like you on the peninsula. I think we're going to do okay, like you said, but we got a long way to go. So thanks very much for taking time from your busy schedule, and stay safe and healthy, and your family too. We'll be praying for them. So
And
thanks.
same to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.